Subscribe to Gizmo Times and get notified about our latest videos by hitting the bell icon.
Hey guys, welcome to Gizmo Times. This is Chetan and this is the full review of the ASUS ZenFone Max Pro M2 smartphone that was recently launched at Rs 15,000 for the 4GB variant, and there are multiple variants of the same. This phone comes packed with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 660, which is the major feature of this phone, but there is quite a lot more to talk about, and that is why the review will have a lot for you to learn and understand on what this offers. So let's get started with the design itself. The first point about the design is that it does not have a glass back. It's a plastic back that you see here, and that is why although the company said that there won't be a lot of scratches on the back, we easily see those minor scratches on the back of the device all through from the mid to the bottom of the phone. You might easily notice them on the back, and although that is on the back, the good thing about the front is that the display comes with the Corning Gorilla Glass 6 protection, which is one major advantage of this phone over the others in this price range, because none of the other phones are going to have that Corning Gorilla Glass 6 protection in this price range. But again, coming back to the back of the phone actually feels pretty solid, and it also feels very comfortable in the hand. There are no sharp edges, there are no sharp corners as well. Everything is rounded off, and it's easy to hold and comfortable to use as well. But there's no use of metal here. It's plastic on the back, it's plastic on the sides as well, and on the front is that glass with the GG6 protection. On the front is the 6.26-inch display. The display quality is actually good. The colors come out quite well. Even with the viewing angles, it's quite good. You can see it easily from the sides, and the brightness is good as well. So with the display, we don't have any complaints except for the fact that it has a notch. Some would prefer the notch, some might not. So for someone who doesn't like the notch, you'll have to bear with it, because there's no option to actually remove the notch here. And apart from that, the notch actually is not that large when compared to the other phones. It's slim enough, and it still has the LED flashlight on the front. And for the other aspects of the design, the earpiece grill doesn't sit in the notch, it sits above it, and that is at the junction of the frame and the display. Towards the bottom, you get the micro USB port, the speaker grill, the headphone jack, as well as the primary microphone. On the back are the two cameras along with that LED flashlight, all housed in a separate frame. And there's a fingerprint sensor on the back of the phone. The phone actually looks very good, but you sure might get scratches on the device, except if you use a case. You are getting a transparent case in the phone package, but if you don't want to use that, you might have to take those scratches on the back. Now coming to the main aspect of the phone, that's the performance. Snapdragon 660, but there's one thing that you have to note here. It comes with a 1.95 GHz clock speed. It's not the fastest there, because the Xiaomi Mi A2 came with the same Snapdragon 660 that was at 2.2 GHz. So there's some compromise done with the chipset and the clock speeds here, but the GPU is the same. So with the gaming performance, we actually did not see any difference between this and the Mi A2 or the Realme 2 Pro. Realme 2 Pro has the same clock speed that the ASUS ZenFone Max Pro M2 has. So there was no issues with the gaming with the medium graphic level. You can check out our gaming review to see how good the graphics and how good the gameplay is on the ZenFone Max Pro M2. So with the performance, one thing is that there are minor issues and lags in the interface itself, although that is the stock Android. And one major advantage over the other phones in this price range is that it has stock Android. There's no bloatware, there's no issues as such, but there are some lags noticeably seen when you're trying to switch between the apps, when you have multiple apps running in the background, but that I guess should be fixed with the software updates. One thing is that the performance is good on this phone. For the gamers, for the regular users, for even the heavy users, Snapdragon 660 will be able to take it out quite easily. Moving on to the next one, that's the cameras. In this price range, there are some phones that I would say are doing very good with the cameras. Firstly, that is the Redmi Note 6 Pro. That has a good camera performance, and compared to that, even the Realme 2 Pro has a very good set of cameras on the back with the f1.7 aperture. Compared to that, the ASUS ZenFone Max Pro M2 has two cameras on the back, in which one has the f1.8 aperture, which is able to take quite some good light in low light conditions, but the final captures that we saw aren't as good as the other two phones that we mentioned here. Both the Redmi Note 6 Pro and the Realme 2 Pro are able to take better shots both in low light conditions as well as in the bright light conditions. The colors are taken out quite well on the ZenFone Max Pro M2, but in the end they are not as close to what those two phones were offering. On the selfie aspect, one advantage of this one over the other two is that it comes with the LED flashlight, but not always you'll be using that. Otherwise, with the contrast levels that we saw, with the light in the background when you're taking selfies, the contrast was not well balanced on the ZenFone Max Pro M2 selfies. And in the regular conditions, since you're not doing a comparison here for the actual users, the selfies might be still good enough in the regular daylight, but in low light conditions you might have to use that selfie light, because in the low light conditions for selfies it was not good enough if you're not using an LED flashlight, and there would be that difference if you're using that light. So for the cameras, I'm not really impressed, but you're getting the 4K video recording at 30 FPS, and there is EIS support for the 1080p videos, and EIS did help quite a bit when you are taking the full HD videos, and that is one advantage. Again, some of the phones in this price range as well are not able to give even the electronic image stabilization which is being offered here. Next one is the battery life. That is one aspect where ASUS has nailed it over every other brand or every other phone in this price range. 5000 mAh battery that had set a benchmark with the ZenFone Max Pro M1 already, and that is continued here. But surprisingly, the battery performance was expected to be better for me when compared to the M1. It was not. The M1 lasted for about 10 hours. The screen on time was 10 hours or even more sometimes on the ZenFone Max Pro M1. With the M2, the average was about 8 hours, and that was, it's not a disappointment here because obviously 8 hours of screen on time is not going to be seen on any other phone, the Realme 2 Pro, the Xiaomi Mi A2, or even the Xiaomi Redmi Note 6 Pro. But still, when compared to its own predecessor, the battery life is not as good enough. But you're getting about 2 days of battery life easily. And even for gamers, we saw the phone to last more than 6 hours on continuous gameplay. So in that aspect, the battery life is the best on this phone over everything else in this price range. 5000 mAh, it's not just the number, but the actual battery life is also quite good on this smartphone. Again, with the battery, one disappointment is that it comes with only the 5-way two-way charging. So here you don't see any fast charge support, and to charge a 5000 mAh battery, you surely are going to connect this to the charger for about a few hours to fully charge itself. And it's not a thing that ASUS has done and not others are doing, because every other phone in this price range doesn't have fast charge support. The Realme 2 Pro also has a 10-watt charging, and even the Xiaomi Redmi Note 6 Pro has 10 watt. It's not faster than that. Only the Nokia 6.1 Plus has a faster, that's a quick charge 3.0 technology support, but these phones don't offer that, and in a way it's a disappointment, but you can't complain here because of the price range that we're talking about. And lastly, about the connectivity and the multimedia, that's the audio. The audio level is actually high. Again, with the speakers, there's no distortion even on the highest volume, and the actual output levels are quite high compared to the other phones. We played the gaming, that's the PUBG Mobile. You can see that the audio levels, that's the speaker levels, are quite high when compared to the other phones. And with the Max box that was given with the M1, that is not given here. Company also said that that is the reason for that is that the speakers are made better here. So obviously you don't need any enhancement or any increasing of the volume there, because it's already quite loud enough, the speakers of the ZenFone Max Pro M2 here. So this was the different aspects of the ZenFone Max Pro M2 review, and for the competition, these two are the phones that we would majorly recommend. That's the Realme 2 Pro and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 6 Pro. But there's one more that gets an honorable mention, that's the Honor 8X. That has a good Snapdragon 710, which is a very good chipset, and along with that you also have a very good rear camera combination. And with the design, I would say that easily out of these four phones, I would recommend the Honor 8X for its design, because it has a very good wavy pattern, along with that line that demarcates these two areas, which is not given on these three. And with the ASUS ZenFone Max Pro M2, although it looks good, you see that it's a plastic kind of back and it's not a glass back, so that compared to the Honor 8X is not as good. So with the design, you can't always judge the phone with the designs. With everything that is packed inside, especially the battery life, I would say that the ASUS ZenFone Max Pro M2 is a better choice. But for someone who loves cameras, you should be trying to look at the other phones rather than the ZenFone Max Pro M2. So this was the full review of the ASUS ZenFone Max Pro M2 smartphone. If you have any other questions, do let me know in the comment section below, and I'll try to answer them. And subscribe to Gizmo Times for more. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next video.